Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are here in the Cherokee Batting Range podcast studio getting ready to record episode number 123. Got a really exciting show lined up for you this week. Before we get into the topic, let's talk about our sponsors. First, the Anderson Bat Company.
Everything Fast Pitch is very proud to have Anderson Bat Company as our presenting sponsor. Anderson Bat Company is using the latest and greatest bat technology to corner the market in the fast pitch world. They have the -9 Rocket Tech, the -10 Carbon, and the -11 Carbon Light. Anderson Bat Company is using this technology to put a high-performing bat in the hands of hitters that really know the difference between a good bat and a great bat. We're also working with Anderson to provide a discount for all of our listeners. Go to the Anderson Bat Company website and order your bats. Use the EFP20 discount, which is for everything fast pitch, and you'll get a 20% discount. It's a great way for you to save a little bit of money on a great bat and also help support everything fast pitch at the same time.
And please make sure you check out patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. Most of you are serious fast pitch people. You've been listening to the podcast, Everything Fast Pitch and Coach Prep for a while. We've got a great group of patrons, people that are supporting us. But if you're in a position where you could become a patron, support us financially, there's 3 different levels of support. If you go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch, it'll all be explained to you there. Here, enjoy episode number 123 of Coach Prep.
So, Don, the question today come to us from a couple of different coaches that are talking about this early season practicing versus early season playing. And the question is basically, what do we believe is the value of scrimmaging in practice or scrimmage games for practice and live batting practice that comes along with it?
No, I think that's interesting, Tori, because it's something that we can't predict is the weather, right? I mean, we're subject to whatever weather we fall upon, and it's different in every area. I think that the more live pitching that the kids can see is going to be helpful, for when we get out to that tournament time. It's hard to replace. I mean, even front toss and stuff like that is good. The adrenaline, the excitement of pressure being on in a scrimmage setting and or in some type of a live hitting segment, I don't think that can be replaced with just cut.
Right.
And we've been doing that all winter, so the sooner we can get out and really experience some live pitching, I think we're going to be, more fine-tuned and ready for that tournament time.
Right. Well, to my way of thinking, it's a balancing act. Yeah. I think live batting practice is crucial. I think we need to see live pitching and have a real pitcher in something that simulates a real game.
Yep.
At certain points in time to get the confidence level up and to get the experience level up, because we can simulate hitting all we want, but it does not replace the experience of getting into the batter's box and facing a real pitcher. The challenge, though, to my way of thinking again, is that I think that in a lot of ways scrimmaging can be a trap that we fall into, because I think when we're scrimmaging or playing, and again, there's 2 different versions. Let's kind of clear that up. Number one is we're talking about intra-squad scrimmage, where we're at practice and we're working with our team and we'll set something up where maybe 3 kids hit and then we play defense with the rest.
Right.
Okay, that's one type of scrimmage situation, which simulates real game, but has the ability for us to stop, teach.
Yep.
Maybe, even if you wanted to stop the scrimmage and do some drills or do something, set up some simulations so that you can work on something that scrimmage situation just exposed.
So I'm thinking extra kids down in the cage hitting as well.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and thinking about from a travel ball, school ball situation, maybe a rec league situation where we only have a couple of extra kids,
right.
I think we can still simulate game situations. But I think the one thing in those practices where we're doing scrimmage situations is that we want to use the fact that it's got that flexibility. It's just our team. And so it gives us the opportunity of, let's say, we're doing a scrimmage situation and something happens. Maybe, the defense messes up a rundown, or the defense messes up a first and third, or the base runner does something, improperly or makes a bad decision or whatever. We have that flexibility then to stop right then and there.
Fix it,
work on it. And when I say fix it or work on it, I don't mean just explaining what we should have done, but maybe we stop the scrimmage for 10 minutes and we put kids on bases and we work on the base running that we just messed up.
Let's just do that again.
Right. Or if we messed up a rundown, instead of saying, well, you should have done this and you should have done this and you should have done this other thing, we stop right then and there and we spend 10 or 15 minutes working on rundowns to rectify what we've learned from what just happened in that scrimmage situation.
And let them actually do it. Whereas if we were playing an outside team in a friendly,
right,
we wouldn't impose that on,
right.
And
so I think
opponent.
that's why I wanted to talk about the different options in what we're calling a scrimmage. So that within your team scrimmage that's going on in practice, to me, I like the flexibility that presents us. I'm not a big fan of scrimmaging as a teaching tool if we're just going to talk about the mistakes that we see or just talk about the things that we need to correct. Explaining things is not the same as teaching them, and talking about things is not the same as actually practicing them. So if something happens in that scrimmage situation, as long as we're taking the time to actually use the information and the opportunity to make real corrections and really practice things, then I think scrimmaging can have a real value.
Good benefit, yeah.
If we use it as similar to like a game day situation where a mistake gets made and we try to talk our way through it or explain our way through it, then I think we're missing the boat.
No, I think you're exactly right, Tori, and I don't think that can be replaced.
Yeah,
but I think talk.
But I think in that situation, I think that the idea of scrimmaging in practice can be really beneficial. But as coaches, we just have to be flexible enough to look at it and say, okay, here's a teachable moment. Here's a chance for us to really work on something that this scrimmage situation has exposed for us. But I think there's other things that we can do, practice situations that can still give us live batting practice opportunities.
And this is where you're saying the balancing act,
right?
It's between weather, between what we've been able to do indoors, what we're lacking,
right?
You got to balance it out.
Yeah, and part of the challenge is with live pitching and live batting practice is that it's not necessarily, or scrimmages, it's not necessarily an efficient way to get stuff done, because when you start to think about how does an at-bat unfold, you might have 6, 8, 10 pitches before the ball's put in play.
Or you get walked.
Right.
You got one cut.
Yeah. And if you've got, a limited number of pitchers, then you start to get into issues of, well, how much can the pitchers pitch?
We're wearing through them.
And allow our hitters to still get some benefit from it. If you've got the typical travel team that's got 2 or 3 pitchers, a long session of scrimmaging / live batting practice can put a real strain on those couple of kids. If you've got a college program where you've got 4, 5, 6 kids on a pitching staff, then you've got a little bit more flexibility. You can throw a little bit more and face a little bit more. But so there's options that I think that we can work on or use to help our hitters see live pitching, try to still keep control of how much our pitchers are really actually pitching.
No, I think that's good for sure, Tori. And if you looked at a game scorebook, how many swings actually happen?
Right.
That gets to be a challenge. But the timing needed, the confidence, the different contact points for different pitch locations, all that stuff has to happen, in my opinion, either on the go in a live setting or, as those early tournaments unfold, that's where we're getting some of that momentum as a hitter.
Right. The idea of scrimmaging in practice has strengths and weaknesses, but we can also do some other things where we have pitchers pitching to hitters without necessarily having to play every ball out too. So, one of the things that I've seen more and more of that I think is a really good idea is just kind of this hitter versus pitcher competition, so that maybe we don't have to necessarily play every ball out, but we can have a pitcher, doing her workout, and then, the hitter maybe stands in and watches the first 4 or 5 pitches, and then, then they have an at bat. So those kinds of things too. So there's some options that you can build in.
I really like that, Tori, and also too, I've encouraged, our hitters to offer to catch.
Right.
For pitchers. The more you're getting to see that perspective and possibly learn a little bit of body language that equals a particular location or spin, where their arm finishes might help them create a certain spin. And if we can recognize those things, I think we can be a much better hitter. And your catchers are going to love you if you offer to go catch a bullpen.
Right.
For your pitchers and that type of thing. So
yeah, and so as we're talking about just within a team practice kind of setting, whether it's an intra-squad scrimmage or a hitter versus pitcher, there's other things too that I think from a coaching perspective we might want to consider. If you have the connections, if you have friends that are involved in the game, bringing in some guest pitchers,
sure.
Somebody from another team to maybe come in, be part of that scrimmage situation or whatever with your team. So they can get a little bit of extra work in and face some hitters, so that it's not just your pitchers doing all the work. Because one of the things that's another trade-off, if my pitchers are pitching to our hitters, then that limits how much time they get to spend as hitters.
Sure.
So, maybe we set up a deal with another team, and on Saturday we bring in a couple of their pitchers that want to get some extra work in, maybe a little bit higher level, maybe an age group up, maybe kids that would challenge our hitters a little bit more with maybe a little bit more movement or a little bit more velocity, and kind of spice things up by doing something like that.
I was going to say, I like that idea. And each coach would know, what their group is capable of.
Right.
So when you ask an older group or a more accomplished group to come and hang out, you would know what level you need to be searching for.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and no matter what, things can be learned. But if I've got a relatively inexperienced hitter, bringing in a pitcher who's going to totally dominate them, I think would be a little bit demoralizing.
Yeah.
But now if we had that dominating pitcher pitch maybe just one at bat to each hitter so that they could see what it's really like without having to go 0 for the day and never make contact.
Right.
I think that would potentially have some benefit.
And be exciting, right?
Yeah.
Encouraging.
Yeah. A good friend of mine brings in, he's got a 16 and under travel ball team, but he's been doing it for a long time, so he's got some quote-unquote alumni. He had the idea, he and I had talked about the ways to help his kids get prepared for a higher level of competition. Early in the summer, after the college season was done, a couple of the kids were back home from school. We decided it'd be a good idea for him to ask a couple of those pitchers to come out.
Nice.
What ended up happening is, of course, some of his hitters, started off kind of intimidated, and because here's a pitcher I just saw on TV a couple of weeks ago,
right.
Coming out to pitch. College kids were happy to do it because they have a hard time finding people to catch for them in the summer.
Yep.
So it gave her a chance to get in a workout, gave her a chance to pitch to some hitters. It ended up being a win-win situation because the player who needed to get the work in the circle got that done.
I love it.
The hitters got to be challenged, but they also started to gain a little bit of confidence because they started to figure out that even though she's good, they could still put the ball in play a little bit. They weren't hitting rockets all over the ballpark.
Still throwing it across
right.
the plate.
And they all had 1 or 2 at bats, so it wasn't totally demoralizing.
Well, and it might make their next challenge seem easy, right?
Right. Yeah. If you can stare down a girl that was just pitching in the conference tournament or the College World Series, not be totally intimidated by it at practice. But again, because it was a practice situation, because nobody was keeping score, I think the kids were more relaxed about it too. So the first part of the argument is this intra-squad idea, what we can do in practice. Then I think the idea of scrimmaging and live BP has definite value. We just have to make sure that it's valuable for all our players, so that we're not putting too much strain on our pitchers, and that we're not creating a situation where just start to treat it like a game and we miss out on the opportunities to learn and to teach and to break things down because we've seen something from that scrimmage situation that really needs to be addressed. Now, the second part of the argument, though, is when we get together and we scrimmage another team.
They call them friendlies.
Yeah. Well, and whether you call it a scrimmage or you call it a friendly, as soon as we bring another team into the equation, I think for us as coaches and for players, we kind of lose our minds a little bit because we don't necessarily see it as a practice opportunity. We see it too much as a competitive situation.
Well, everybody wants to win, right?
Right.
And if somebody's going to say, oh, we scrimmaged them and we beat them,
right,
then that's kind of one of those, well, I don't want somebody saying that about me.
Right. And so I think what ends up happening then is we're playing these scrimmage games, these friendly games, whatever they're supposed to be, and something happens. We see a mistake, we see something that we need to work on, but we try to treat it like we would on game day. We can't stop a game. Ask the umpire, hey, can you give us 10 minutes while we work on rundowns or
right.
Whatever it is. What I would challenge coaches to do if you're using scrimmage games with outside teams, let's set up some parameters at the beginning. Instead of treating it like just another softball game, let's start to think about some things that we can do to really make this a beneficial learning experience.
Well, what about, starting with runners on base, starting
right.
with, 2 strikes, starting with, different scenarios, ITB.
And that was my first suggestion. We used to do something in the fall when I was coaching at Tennessee Tech that we called a scripted scrimmage. And I keep coming up with these things to say that are hard to say. Scripted scrimmage. So a scripted scrimmage was basically we would map it out and have a different starting situation for every inning.
Right.
And then we would play
Work
innings. We'd play one inning, we'd just start off with nobody on base. And we'd play, starting with a runner at first, and runners at first and second, then bases loaded, with it's the winning run, and then tiebreaker, and then, every situation you could think of. What we would end up doing then is, create situations automatically that put pressure on our defense and presented our hitters with different kinds of opportunities. If we're setting it up that we're going to start off with a runner at first, then that's maybe a situation where we're going to be thinking about working on bunting and hitting behind the runner and hit and run and those kinds of things. And starting off in that tiebreaker situation, you start to think about, okay, how are we going to get this run in?
Right.
So then you're working on bunting and hitting specifically to try to get a certain job done.
And that way they can see it and feel it and work through it in their mind too, rather than when it first happens in a big tournament.
Right. But so let's say we set up the scripted scrimmage, and the very first time we set up first and third or runner at first or whatever it is, our team's on defense and we screw something up. Let's set it up with the coach in advance that we're going to stop right now, and both teams are going to work on this together to make sure we're both better at it. Because if we screwed it up, you might screw it up too.
If we've got that kind of relationship, I think that's perfect.
Right, and trying to set those kinds of
expectations of the day
up in the beginning. So instead of turning it into this ultra competitive, we've got to win this scrimmage game or we've got to win this friendly game, that it really is meant to be a friendly opportunity for us to help each other get better.
Instead of having 12 kids, we've got 24 kids there that
day.
Right.
And then the same thing, so then they're on offense and they've got a runner at second in a tiebreaker situation. 3 hitters in a row can't get a bunt down. Well, okay, so let's stop right now and let's have everybody work on bunting together. Let's, however we're going to set it up, with, some bunting drills and some other things to, help them work on that a little bit more.
And we're just helping the kids. We're not, sharing top secret.
Yeah, no, it's not like we're going to say, okay, here's our super secret, first and third play or whatever it is, even though there's really no secrets anyhow because it's not that kind of a game.
Throw it and catch it and don't make mistakes.
But I think if we're doing those kinds of things in that friendly/scrimmage situation, then I think that's a really good idea. But here's what I see happening all the time, and kids come back to lessons and tell me that they played a scrimmage game. And so what'd you guys learn? Well, we beat them 3-2. Well, what'd you work on? Oh, we just played a game. To me, I think that's a lost opportunity because we're thinking about what's the best way for us to get our kids as much experience as possible. Instead of going out there and playing a 7-inning game, let's play a 7-inning game or a 14-inning game or a 5-inning game or whatever it is. That doesn't necessarily have to be about the score. Let's think about it as a chance to work on the things that we really need to work on. And if getting chances to see pitches and getting some more live batting practice or more opportunities for our hitters to compete with a pitcher in a situation, maybe we start to set up situations that turn the game over a little bit faster. Maybe, as you said, it starts off, it's a full count every time.
Right. Yeah.
Okay? If we've got a team that struggles with being able to to stay aggressive, maybe it starts off with a 2-0 count every time. Maybe we think of whatever our team needs to work on. And we set up that situation, and we can get together with the other coach and say, okay, what are some things that you really need to work on with your team? And if it's, too many of my kids are, if we're talking about the youngest of all players, too many of our players are afraid they're going to get hit by pitches.
Right.
Well, then we set it up that we make sure that our pitcher who pitches to them the first time through is our most consistent, never hits anybody pitcher.
Give them a little chance to get some
so they can
comfort.
gain some confidence. We really stink at hitting the changeup. We're pretty good if they throw hard, but as soon as we get that kid that's got a really good changeup, well, then our job is that first inning, first time through the order, we put in our very best changeup pitcher, so they get to work on that. You're not giving anything away by having that kind of a relationship, because ultimately any coach who's knowledgeable at all is going to figure out, wait a second, these kids can't hit the changeup, these kids can't hit the low pitch, they can't hit the outside pitch, whatever it is. So let's just admit that that's something that we really want to work on. And from a batting practice perspective, let's try to do the things that we need to make it as efficient as possible to get as much out of it as we can.
No, I think that's great, Tori. And again, being creative like this, I think is going to keep the game fresh for the kids, keep practice fresh, let them be excited about, hey, what are they going to have us do today?
Right. Well, and the other reason why I thought this was worth discussing is because, again, as these kids come in for lessons and they're talking about their weekend, say, so what's on the schedule this weekend? Oh, we're playing a friendly. Oh, we're playing a scrimmage game. Oh, we need to practice, but our coach doesn't know how to have a good practice, so we got to have a scrimmage game instead. That's just kind of a red flag to me. If the kids aren't excited about what's going to be happening in these friendly/scrimmage games, if it's not as exciting to them as playing in a qualifying tournament, then we're probably doing something wrong with how we're managing these.
Right.
And so, as you mentioned, if we can keep it fresh because they come in knowing, hey, we're really working on something today, we're really going to get something done. This other team is helping us get better. And again, depending upon your situation, if you're in a organization that's got multiple teams of the same age group, then it's a perfect situation.
Kind of built in,
because then you can, see it as a way to help the organization get better and help all the teams improve.
Absolutely.
If you're bringing in a team, if you're not in an organization or, it's not that kind of a situation, and you bring in a team that could potentially be a competitor on down the road. We talked with Coach Whitlock on our 100th episode about the rivalry that we had between UW Parkside and Kennesaw State back in the 90s, and how, in spite of the fact that we were fighting for the same thing and chasing after the same thing, that those kids became friends and friendly rivals and were willing to help each other. And so I think that there's a lot to be gained from that.
And then we're still here today.
Absolutely.
This is it.
And I'm still eating crow because never won that national championship. But
you've won your share.
But that's okay. So, so coaches, live batting practice, scrimmage situations. I think we've kind of hit the nail on the head. We need to give our hitters opportunities to see live pitching. We need to be creative, though, in how we do that. One, to make sure that we're not wearing out our pitchers. Two, to make sure that we're focusing on the things that our hitters really need to focus on, and that we're giving them enough opportunities to learn. We have to avoid falling into the trap of treating a scrimmage like a game versus a scrimmage as an opportunity to really work on all the things that we're learning while we're out there playing those scrimmage games.
Keep it as a learning tool. Yeah.
So be creative, be open-minded, but start to think about ways to get as much out of those opportunities as you possibly can. Get your kids some swings, but also give your team a chance to learn from every opportunity.
So we're working on signals and stuff too. And,
absolutely.
And working on they've got their, signal cards, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And all those things can be built in, like we said before. When you're out there playing in a game, it's going to expose things that need to be worked on.
And if it's coaches,
and if it's a situation like this where it's an intra-squad scrimmage or a friendly that's truly friendly, where we're there to help each other get better, then I think that gives us a lot of chances to really get the most out of it.
A not so friendly, right?
Yeah, and if we're showing up to playing a friendly, but it's not friendly because we just want to beat somebody's butt, then let's not call it a friendly. Let's just call it a game.
It's a game. Yeah.
That's going to wrap up episode number 123 of Coach Prep. As always, please make sure you support our sponsors, Anderson Bat Company, and patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. Check out fastpitchprep.com so you can order your Square Cuts training discs. They're $49.95 a dozen. Just go to the main page and click on the order button, and it'll take you through the steps. We'll get them sent to you right away. As always, reach out to us with ideas, suggestions, and topics at everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. So for Coach Don McKinley and our producer Stan Lewis, this is Coach Torrey saying thanks for listening to 123, and we'll talk to you again next week.